is Elena Reed, and I'm doing my speech in front of my sister, who is 16 years old, my mom, and my dad. Okay. I want you to think back to a time when you tried to learn something new, like learning to play a new sport or learning a new system at work. And in those first few days, weeks, months, years, you feel frustrated because you're not improving as much as you wanted. You might have thought you should just give up and accept no matter how much you try and practice, you can't improve. In this speech, I want to explain how humans actually learn new skills and information, and why practice is so important to actually retain what you have learned. Spanish neuroscientist Santiago Ramon y Cajal theorized that the human brain was made up of cells called neurons and links between the neurons called synapses. He was ridiculed by other scientists because the leading theory at that time, in the early 1900s, was that the brain was made up of matter completely different from the rest of the body. In 1906, Cajal received a Nobel Prize for his theory, which proved to be correct. Cajal's other theory, however, turned out to be wrong. He believed that the nerve paths between are fixed, ended, and immutable, meaning that the brain does not change after a certain point in adulthood and only deteriorates with time. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to create synaptic connections. The human brain is made up of neurons, the cells, and when learning new information or a skill, the neurons create pathways, which are those synapses, and it's like creating a bridge between the two. The amount of neurons in the brain does not increase, only the amount and strength of those synapses. You can only strengthen the bridge, not the actual sides, or those neurons. The neurons can be damaged and lost, however, which is what brain damage is. And this process happens within the outer surface layer of the brain, or the cortex, which is that crinkly outer layer. So when people say, like, you have a wrinkly brain, it means you're smarter because you have more of those synaptic connections. When you learn or practice something new, pathways are created and can be strengthened by continuous practice and review. The more practice you put in, the stronger those synapses become, creating memory. The brain changes in two ways when learning: chemical and physical. The process of transferring signals between the neurons is a chemical process. The rapid process is used to create short-term memory. And that's only when you have like one session of practice, you're remembering that in the short term. When learning a new skill over a long period of time, the structure of the brain actually physically changes to strengthen the connections that you were using when practicing. So you do multiple sessions over a long period of time, your brain physically changes to retain that information. For example, if you are just beginning to learn the piano, the first time you practice, you're creating chemical signals to the neurons that help you learn to play in the short term. One day you may feel like you're improving, and the next day you feel like you forgot everything because that short term didn't actually physically change. With each practice you have, the more your brain physically changes to retain the improvement you made over a long time, creating that muscle memory. And then if you actually want to learn something, you have to put in the effort to understand and practice the information or skill you want to learn. Students who study the night before a test may learn and remember the information to earn a better grade on the test. However, they are only creating short-term chemical changes. If they want to actually learn the information and increase their intelligence, they have to understand and review what they have learned continuously throughout their lives. Learning is not exclusive to young adults and children. Age does not determine one's ability to learn. Adult taxi drivers are a great example of strengthening the neurological pathways or synapses, because MRIs taken of London taxi drivers showed that they had a larger hippocampus compared to the rest of society. So their brain physically changed after memorizing their routes in every single street in London. The hippocampus is largely responsible for the memory of the brain. The more time they spent driving and practicing, the larger the hippocampus became and the stronger those synapses became. And in conclusion, the brain is made up of neurons and pathways between those neurons that form when a skill or information is built up to help in the short term or the long term. Intelligence was thought to be fixed and could only decrease with age, but that is completely false. Learning is a skill that can be accomplished at any age. Improvement only comes with practice and effort over a long amount of time. If you want to truly improve at something, practice is imperative in creating the physical structural change in the brain that creates memories. Don't be discouraged if you don't immediately improve. Put in the time and you will improve. Thank you.
Good job.